Regular meeting of the LGBTQ Quality of Life Advisory Commission, 6:37 p.m. on Monday, April 21st, 2025. First item on the agenda is public communication. Ryan, do we have anyone signed up for public communication?
Yes, we have 2 people signed up for general public communication. First, we have Julian Reyes, who will be sharing a video.
We filmed and witnessed the Austin police officer take a woman down on her face on the concrete and cause her to bleed out her face, cause her injury, violently assaulting her in a self-defense move that wasn't used in self-defense. It was used in an offensive, assaultive behavior, assault and battery. And what did the Austin police say? What did the news say? It's A-OK, it's okie doke. It's the policy and the training. They reviewed it multiple times, and everything looks like it's policy. Who's going to fight for justice for this brown and trans female that was assaulted by the police here in Austin, Texas, a liberal city that pretends to be pro-LGBTQIA+, but they're not, pro-queer, but they're not, and this is the type of assaultive behavior that Austin police does to other people. And the police said it's okay. They reviewed it. It's fine. It's according to policy. And that the trans female here that you'll see in this video fell down when they touched her. She did it to herself, is what they basically said. The Austin Police Department, the investigators, and the PIO lied to the public, and you'll see with your own eyes. Watch. So are we going to have justice? Are these officers going to be charged and fired or not? You tell me. What should be done? Is this okay or not? Do you want it to continue or not? It's up to you. Don't just talk about it. Do something. It's time to end this. And some cops need to go to jail. We don't need to see this happen anymore, ever again. I hope we're in agreement.
There you go. She's under arrest. Throw her down. There you go.
She's trans.
She's trans? This is how they treat trans people in Austin. Sergeant's looking on.
Blood all over her face. Blood all over her face. Her face is a mess. Oh my god. Blood running out of her mouth. Oh my god. She looks bad. She didn't look like that beforehand.
Blood on the street. There's people's blood on the street here from being slammed on the ground. This is her face was on the ground here.
This is her face right here.
That's what APD did. If you think that's okay, there's something wrong with you.
The boy definitely, he got the prod.
Doesn't matter who it is.
Do they keep people safe?
Next up to speak, we have Brianna Arredondo.
Hi, members of the committee. I'm here with my friend, and we came to speak about the police brutality and police accountability, and they're using excessive force on our community members and our members in the community, the gay community, the trans community. And how is this okay? By the video that y'all watch, how is that okay? Is that okay to y'all that this happened? This is definitely not okay. This is definitely needs to be, action needs to be taken now. Words don't mean anything. Action. The people need to see action that these police officers need to be held accountable, whether they're a gay officer, you know, they're an officer first, not just because it doesn't matter what they identify as, gay, they're an officer first. They should be held accountable because they're supposed to be a public servant, right? They're supposed to protect and serve us. And they didn't show that in that video, you know. And so, yes, it's clear in the video that this is police brutality and excessive force, that this is a move that should be removed. The police always talks about holding themselves accountable and a transparency and stuff like that. But clearly, time and time again, they show themselves not holding themselves accountable at all. You know, and there's council members, they spoke out, right? I understand them speaking out, but we need to see action. We need to see action. The community members, from people in the community, LGBT community, we need to see action. Not just words by Mike Segal, Vanessa Fuentes, Jose Velasquez, Chito Vela. You know, we need to see action, not just words, okay? And then, time and time again, police groom themselves. They actually don't hold themselves accountable. The police are not above the law, and they definitely need to be held accountable for their actions. And then why action is not being taken? Why action is not being taken? Yeah, we hear the words, but where is the action at? Where is the action? Where is it? You know? And so, respectfully, where is it at? Where is the action? You know, we talk about, accountability, transformative change, you know, and the police have an issue with people filming the police. Like, we have every right, it's a constitutional right to film the police, you know, in our community, you know, we have every right to film the police officer. And so, if they feel threatened by our cameras, we should be threatened by their armor that they have, their guns, you know. And what action is going to be made? Will y'all allow the police to continue to do this to our communities? Thank you so much.
So, we're going to move on to agenda item number 3. I asked Miriam to come and speak to us before we took up, you know, Austin Police Department relations. Why? Because it's relevant right now. It's relevant when it comes to the environment that our population is living in the city of Austin and the state of Texas. It's what's happening at the state is having a dramatic impact on the overall well-being of the community. And we, as a commission, have an obligation to make sure that we are listening to our community. And I think it's important we really focus on the areas where added stress has either occurred or is likely to occur. And we just make sure that our community is having its engagements and ensuring its engagements with the city of Austin are as stress-free as possible in this highly stressful environment. So with that, start off with a discussion with Austin Police Department on the state of its and its officers' relations with the LGBTQIA community, including existing, pending, and potential efforts to improve understanding, relations, and accountability. I understand Chief Davis is not able to come tonight, but we do have Commander Chancellor here tonight. Come on down, Commander. Forgive me, Commander Chancellor, I've got to start off with public comments on this. I'm sorry. Perfect. Yeah, guys, I've got to start off with public comments. I apologize. So we're going to have public comments on agenda item number 3. Do we have any?
We do not have anybody registered.
Okay, then y'all are great. Commander Chancellor, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Robin Henderson. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Austin Police Department. I'm accompanied by Assistant Chief Chancellor. Congratulations, sir, on your recent promotion. Welcome to the team. And also by Sergeant Crumrine. And so apologies that Chief Davis could not be here this evening. She's traveling today. However, she wanted me to come to make sure I represented to the commissioners how important this item is. Please note that the Austin Police Department has always been committed to having an inclusive and respectful working environment and interacting with the Austin community in which they expect to be policed and interacted with. Dignity and respect and professionalism at all times. And so with that, I'm going to pass the microphone to Chief Chancellor to do an introduction.
My name is Mike Chancellor. I am soon to be Assistant Chief, recently promoted. I've been over the downtown area, so I'm familiar with a lot of the concerns that have been brought up in recent meetings. I've also been commander over the training academy, and so very familiar with the training that's going on out there and all the different things that we do to make sure that we treat every community member with dignity and respect, and how we're training the cadets and how much we've put into the academy to make sure that we're doing that. And with other officers, we've put in a pre-academy, and I know I sent the list of training previously, but we have an 80-hour pre-academy that really digs into the community before they touch anything that's police work related. And so that's extremely important to us to make sure that we are doing that, and also bringing in those same training classes for in-service officers so that they get the same type of training. And so with that, I will turn it over to Sergeant Crumrine.
Good evening. My name is Sergeant Wilmore Crumrine. Most of y'all in the room I've had the pleasure at some point or another of either meeting or being able to have a conversation with. So thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time this evening. One of the different roles that I do hold within the Austin Police Department is I'm the president of our Lesbian and Gay Peace Officers Association, which is the first and only of its kind in the state of Texas. In that role, and over the period of time since we were formed since 2009, the women and men of the Austin Police Department have always strived incredibly hard to build relations between the community and the police department. In that role of being a member of the queer community, as well as many of the other individuals who are our members, we have been some of the individuals that have helped bridge gaps back and forth when things have happened between the community and with the police department. And I'm here to express that the women and men of the Austin Police Department have never wavered in their desire to create positive relations back and forth between the community. We've done that since we were formed in 2009, and none of that is being shirked in any way moving forward. And we very much value and want to be able to build long and sustaining relationships as we move forward in our careers, and then also as members of the queer community, having a foot in both worlds.
I guess what I'd like to do is start off just with overall questions. And so we're going to go around the room and hear from every commissioner on questions or any statements. So Commissioner McLeod, I'm going to start with you.
I thank you first, each and every one of you all, for being here, for showing up and being willing to have conversation with community. A little closer. Can you hear me? Okay. You mentioned that your officers have to undergo 80 hours of training before they have touch with community. I'm thinking about my own training to become a dance movement therapist, and we're required 3,000 hours of supervision and training before we take on clients of our own. Can you tell me what additional, and our community, what additional training and requirements that you have for police officers to ensure that not only are they prepared to handle our community with sensitivity and the vulnerabilities that they have?
Yeah, so when I said 80 hours, that's just the pre-academy. And so the state requires over 700 hours of training, and our training academy is over double that. And so a lot of the classes that we interweave in there do deal with the community and how do we treat people, and whether it's teaching them policy or bringing in community members or officers that are parts of these different communities that can teach that to them. So we have different groups that will come out there, transgender officers that will teach them, and all kinds of different groups that will come out. The deaf community, we try and schedule time at the School for the Deaf and doing all of those things. Again, it's too much really to list here in everything that we do, but if you take a look at the list that I previously sent in, it's got a ton of classes, and that doesn't even really cover everything that we have there. There are other classes where we try and speckle in all kinds of different things within them to make sure that we're touching on those issues, to make sure that the cadets have that understanding.
Thank you. I'm also very curious in light of our current political climate and just the fact that our community is genuinely terrified of what's to come next. What action should we expect from our law enforcement to instill any sort of safety within the community, especially given the video that we just watched? And this is for all of you. I know I'm looking at you, but feel free to share.
Yes, thank you for the question. Please note the Austin Police Department has always been intentional about engaging with our community, making ourselves available to hear those concerns. Please note any time that there is something of significance that occurs in the community that is brought forward to our attention, we immediately address them. We have not ever been in the space where we were not willing to have those conversations and engage in that dialogue. We are also intentional about sharing our operational procedures, our policies, and having that review process done by our community members. Therefore, we can modify, change, adjust to make sure our policing practices and standards actually then conform to how the Austin community expects us to interact with members of the community and how they want to be policed. Understand that then gets incorporated into our training efforts moving forward. It's not like it gets implemented in one section or one component of our department. We are intentional about making sure we implement those processes across all areas of our department and our training and our operations, our patrol operational procedures. All those items get touched. So when those issues or concerns get brought forward, we want to make sure we are taking a holistic approach to it, and then making sure not only we integrate those changes, but then report out to the community, hey, we heard you, we listened, and we understood. We may have needed to make adjustments. We did, and this is what you can expect to see moving forward.
Possibly my last question, where do our community members go to find that communication for those who may not know where to go?
Yes, ma'am. So our policies are posted online under austintexas.gov, and if you just Google or either enter Austin Police Department policies, they will be listed. They'll all be listed there.
I was just going to say, if you wanted specific policies and procedures we put in place for the queer community, happy to direct you to those if you would like. Those are a specific set. Some of the things you would ask about how we can keep the public safe. After the murder of Monica Loera, for folks that can remember that back in 2019, we worked diligently with that and changing our policies and procedures. It's now available that anybody who is the victim of a crime can have it. Let's say that an arrest was going to come out of that, correct? That they were a victim and we were going to file an arrest. There's the ability to have anonymity in those public documents. So especially for our trans individuals and other members of the queer community who may not be out, it allows them some anonymity, so it's kept out of public documents that individuals can immediately access. We also have changed the way that we document trans and non-binary individuals in our reports, so that somebody who has not had the ability to have their legal markers changed are still treated with dignity and respect and are able to use the pronouns that they wish to use and their names, and that being properly documented in the report. All of this is trained to the cadets before they get out, as well as much other training that we do with cadets in regards to some specific crime types such as sexual assault, intimate partner violence, and those unique dynamic present in the queer community versus a heterosexual community. So there's multiple different layers that we have built into those policies, but happy to send those to you directly if you would like.
And that specific policy is going to be 402, incident reporting and documentation. And we have other policies, but we'll be sure to follow up and send those to the commission. Also, just wanted to let you know that we also integrate that into our field training program. So we want to make sure that the officers that are training our probationary officers and our cadets, they understand the importance and the significance and are up to date with our current policies and procedures.
In one point, I said Monica murder was in 2019. It was actually in January of 2016. So I apologize for that, and I wanted to get that correct on the record.
Commissioner McLeod, do you have anything I can come back to if you have further thoughts? I know it's annoying being the first one.
I'd love it if you come back to me. I might have more.
Commissioner Coyne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being with us tonight. We appreciate the open dialogue. I know I do. I was wondering if you could please define excessive force as per APD's guidance about what that means and how you evaluate for that. I'm not asking you to talk about a specific case, but in general, talking more about the process by which you evaluate excessive force. I'd like to understand a little bit more about that.
Thank you for the question. Please note there are several layers of our review process. Of course, it happens on the night of any time a use of force incident occurs. So anything beyond unresisted handcuffing results in a use of force incident. That incident then needs to be reported to a supervisor the night of, immediately once the scene gets under control. They have to notify a supervisor. Depending on what level it is, 3 or higher. Let me back up. There's 4 levels of use of force, 4 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. Depending on what level it is, 3 or above, then that supervisor then has to respond to the scene and do an interview. That interview is of the individual that force was used against, the officer that used force, any officers on scene that witnessed the incident, and any bystanders that could still be on scene to provide information. They're also required to do a canvass of the scene to see if there's any independent video that might have captured the use of force incident. From that, the officer that used the force is required to write a report. Any officers that witnessed it are required to write a report, and then that supervisor is also required to write a report. That then gets forwarded to our force review unit, which is an independent unit from the chain of command. That force review unit then reviews or does a preliminary review of the use of force, documents it, and then sends that out to the chain of command for the chain of command to do an evaluation of the officer's use of force. From there, that then gets sent back to the use of force to ensure that the chain of command took appropriate action and that the officer's use of force, there has been several layers of review. The initial supervisor responding to the scene, the force review unit, that then gets sent to it, then the officer's chain of command, who used the force, actually reviews it too. So there's several layers of components of review. Please note that the Office of Police Oversight also has access to essentially all of our records. There's not anything that exists within APD that the Office of Police Oversight cannot directly access. They don't need our permission. They don't need a special request. They can literally log in themselves and directly review all of our records that exist. And so speaking to excessive force, any force that is used beyond what is necessary in order to bring a scene or a person under control could be considered excessive force. And was there anything that I left out in the review process?
If we didn't have enough review levels there already, we also have a monthly commanders group that meets together with the OPO and goes over certain cases to re-review them and make sure that we're not missing anything outside of that.
Thank you. And any layer in that can refer something to internal affairs. It's not, it has to go through this. There's any layers in those reviews that can be sent to internal affairs to do either an administrative investigation or either a inquiry to understand there isn't enough information in the reporting or the review process to get a clear picture of why this type of force was used, or there was issues in the reporting in and of itself. It can then get referred to internal affairs for an administrative investigation.
Okay. Could you, in a hypothetical sense, give me an example of what would be classified as excessive force in different scenarios? Maybe one or two examples?
I would say any use of force incident where more force was used than what was necessary in order to bring a scene under control.
Who decides what's necessary?
That's just determined by policy and the chain of command in our standard operating procedures.
Right. I'm asking for more clarity on that specifically.
And I think a lot of that has also been defined in regards to case law, and civil suit and appellate decisions in regards to what meets those levels. So both statutorily as well as through judicial review that set those standards.
Okay. I'm still a little unclear about the details of what is necessary force or what would be considered excessive force. I understand that there's a lot of an entire review process. I guess in that review process that is internal to APD, the Office of Police Oversight, can you explain a little bit more just so I can clarify for myself? When would they get involved? And I understand that they can have access, but what would trigger their involvement at what point in that process?
They can insert themselves at any moment. There isn't a necessary trigger. Now, there's certain levels. If it's a level 1, our highest level, it automatically triggers a more robust investigation. So internal affairs will automatically do an investigation in addition to our special investigations unit. Special investigations unit handles investigations where there is a potential criminal component. Internal affairs handles investigations where it's an administrative component.
Gotcha.
So just to make sure, for a level 1, that means it's serious bodily injury or death. And so those individual entities are automatically activated. In addition, Office of Police Oversight will be involved in that.
Okay.
Involved in that too.
Automatically in a level 1 excessive force review.
Level 1 doesn't necessarily mean excessive force.
Sorry, level
It's
1
just
use
based
of
on
force.
Use of force.
Thank you.
Correct. It's based on the extent of the injuries. Correct.
As well as any in-custody deaths.
Okay.
But if somebody were to call the Office of Police Oversight or file an anonymous complaint, there's an anonymous complaint process. So anybody can notify the Office of Police Oversight and say, on this date and time, I believe excessive force was used, and that will trigger an investigation to move forward in an inquiry from them.
One inquiry to the Office of Police Oversight will trigger them looking into some incident.
Correct. Any notification to them will trigger them moving forward with an inquiry into what was reported to them.
What does the follow-up look? Sorry, is this okay, y'all? This feels like one line of thinking, and I want to make sure I'm clear. So if I could literally email them right now and say, hey, I think this incident is problematic and you need to look into it, and they would look into it. What would their inquiry look like? Is there follow-up with the person who reported a potential issue? How do folks stay informed about the result of getting in touch with them?
Great question. In regards to the follow-up aspect, I'll answer that first. First and foremost, it's up to whether or not the individual who files a complaint wishes to have follow-up. We do have an anonymous complaint process, so it could be that somebody wishes to file an anonymous complaint, and therefore we have no way of contacting them or knowing how to follow up or following back up with that, even though some inquiries will attempt to be made in regards to that. So their inquiry would go to Internal Affairs and say that there's an issue that's been reported to us. Internal Affairs would then start gathering the evidence and trying to see, for instance, if you were to say, Mike Crumrine ended up punching me in the face while I was at the Board and Commissions meeting on April 21st. We're going to look into that and start pulling those documents. Is there potential evidence? Was it recorded? Was there any other information to help establish whether or not this did occur or this did not occur?
Okay. I will wrap it up.
No, you're good. I just want to clarify one thing.
Yep.
Michael, are you here? What's your capacity as president of LGPOA? Are you here representing the City of Austin's police force? Are you representing LGPOA? Who are you speaking on behalf?
On both, sir.
On both. Okay. And Robin, remind me of your position.
Yes, sir. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Austin Police Department.
Thank you, Robin. And Michael, you're the sorry. We've got you as a soon-to-be Assistant Chief, correct?
Assistant Chief.
Okay. And Michael Crumrine, what's your position with the Austin Police Department?
I am a sergeant assigned to the Child Abuse Unit, but currently on a special assignment.
Okay. Please continue.
Thanks. I'm going to wrap up because I want to give other commissioners a chance, and if I have more, maybe we can loop around. But I wanted to gauge whether or not, if other commissioners are interested, would APD be willing to coordinate a larger town hall focused entirely on policing with the LGBTQ Commission, and in an attempt to actually try to get more feedback from folks, more of a listening session from community members. Is that something you would be willing to coordinate with us on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to expand on the previous discussion surrounding the Office of Police Oversight, please know that they are involved with the investigation from the onset. So any interview that is done, whether the interview is done of a witness or the complainant or an officer, the Office of Police Oversight sits in on every single interview that is conducted. They also have the ability to ask questions if they feel as though maybe the investigator didn't ask enough or missed a question, or maybe the person they were asking questions directly of didn't answer a question. The Office of Police Oversight does have that ability to ask follow-up questions. So please know they're involved in the entire process from the initial touch point all the way through to case closure. They also have an opportunity to weigh in on Chief Davis related to discipline matters, and they also provide a memorandum to Chief Davis if for some reason they do not agree with the discipline that was administered at case closure. They will provide a memorandum to Chief Davis, which she is then required to respond to.
Okay. Last follow-up question. It's short, and it's sort of feedback also. The little things matter for our community to feel safe. And yeah, it's the big things like the video we saw in public communication, but it's the little things too. Sergeant, you have ma'amed me multiple times in our town hall, and you have repeatedly said the men and women of APD. If I were a member of APD, that would not include me. I'm non-binary. I'm not a man. I am not a woman. Please stop using that language. It's not inclusive. Thank you.
I very much appreciate the feedback. I apologize very much for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bandit.
Hi. Okay, so I'm listening to all these procedures for oversight, right? But we saw the press release in response to the video that we just watched that justified the use of force that we saw. And yet there's still so many concerns from community members. And yet I feel like it has just been dismissed and there's not a way for them to properly have accountability, right? So even though all these procedures are happening, there's still community concerns. So how do we move forward when y'all are sitting here saying, oh, this is okay, and the community is saying, We don't want this for ourselves. How do we move forward when y'all are sitting there saying, well, oh, we followed procedures, but there's still concerns and there's still not accountability?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. Please note that that use of force incident is still in review. Please know that we're here today to help understand how we can better report out or give information related to these incidents. We are not trying to hide or be dismissive or say it's not important. Not at all. It is important. That's why we are here. There is a process in which we have to follow, and we are following that process. But I don't want that to be viewed as though we do not care. That is not it. We have been intentional about our policies and practices, our procedures, our community engagement for many, many years. I can tell you that I have been involved with training for, oh my gosh, going back 20 years, where we were intentional about engaging with the LGBTQ community, just in how we did our role play scenarios, how we made sure related to gender identity in our reports. This is not something new, but I also don't want it to be construed as though we believe as though the work is done. The work is not ever finished. The work continues. But I also don't want it to be as though we are not looking towards having a space where this type of misunderstanding or this type of behavior is then perceived as though we are being excessive or it was unwarranted or there is the police department taking advantage of this marginalized community. That is not it at all. And so we are here seeking to have that dialogue, being able to keep the conversation going and do the best that we can to answer the questions, but also being open to the dialogue and any procedures or processes or changes that we have to make. We do want to be clear, though, that we do have processes in place, because I also don't want the community to think that we have not been intentional about doing everything that we can to make sure all of our community members are treated with dignity and respect.
It just feels like whenever that is the response that the community hears, like within the press release, like we don't know that there is an ongoing investigation, that there are real concerns. It feels very dismissive of the community concerns, right? And the reason y'all are here today is because we invited y'all. It's not like y'all are inviting the community to have conversations with y'all, right? So I feel like there needs to be a more communication with the community, right? And more direct lines of engagement, and not just sitting there releasing this press release saying, oh, we reviewed the footage and everything, and that's that. Because that's what it feels like. That's what the community heard, and that's what we see. And now that's why we have y'all here, right? So those are some of my concerns. Another one of my concerns is if you pull somebody over and you have their ID, is it typical for you to ask them if they are male or female despite having the information right there on their ID?
In one of the trainings that we do out at the academy, what we ask our officers to do is simply ask somebody, is the information on your driver's license accurate or correct? And then that affords the opportunity for somebody to advise us, no, it's not. This is my pronoun and this is my gender marker. And then we do have requirements under law to make sure that we identify individuals in regards to their legal identifiers, but we've put in place ways that we can capture how somebody wishes to identify so that we can include that as well moving forward.
Yeah, I heard what you said earlier about trying to respect people's gender identity despite whatever may be on their documentation, right? I was pulled over in drag, and I was asked if I was a male or female while he had my ID right in front of him. And that was really alarming for me, and that was really scary. And I don't think that that's a proper way to go about these things. So I don't know what the procedures are for figuring that out or whatnot, but that is another concern that I had, especially as a drag performer. And then lastly is I host drag shows on 4th Street where we see police just come in and hang out and look around and then leave the bar. And I've been to bars all across Austin. I have never seen police just come in and check out the space and then leave the way that they consistently do on 4th Street. Why does that happen on 4th Street and not other bars?
So I think several of those officers feel that they're a part of that community, and so they're there for that reason. But recently, we've had a conversation with those officers that we should be treating those bars the exact same across the city.
That's all I have for now.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for being here. I know the job of policing is a tough role. I think we can all agree that we want a safe community, but how we proceed with that is the question. And I think this kind of highlights that we need better communication. Many cities like New York, San Diego, and Dallas have specialized LGBTQ units within their police forces. Has APD considered implementing a similar unit?
So we have the Office of Community Liaison, where right now we have a LGBTQAI plus representative, and that's what their primary job is, to do community outreach, attend community engagement meetings. They can attend our regular Community Connect meetings. It doesn't necessarily have to be identity specific. But we want to make sure that we have that cross-collaboration with all of our Office of Community Liaison representatives. So represent the faith-based, represent the African-American community, represent the Hispanic community, and they are all housed at our Office of Community Liaison. We also have Sergeant Crumride and others that are in positions to help with that dialogue, make sure that we are being engaged, make sure that we are staying up to date and that we don't lose sight, but then also that we're fostering those relationships. And so I wouldn't necessarily say there is one specific group that is their job. The expectation at the Austin Police Department is that we are all working towards fostering those relationships with our community members. It's not just one entity's job within the Austin Police Department.
Gotcha. I guess when a major incident like this happens, my thoughts are, and I think other commissioners have expressed that, a liaison group like this would be able to bring that incident to some place like our commission so we can consult. Is that something you guys would be interested in exploring?
Absolutely.
Does the APD curriculum currently include specific training around LGBTQ community and cultural competency with a emphasis on trans individuals or understanding the correct way to address people or sensitivities around that?
Yeah. Again, I sent that comprehensive list of that training, and it does include all of that. Absolutely.
Does APD track incidents like this, particularly if something seems to be targeted to a specific community, both within the force and without the force? So I know we as a community are always worried that historically we have been prosecuted, and understanding the data around it. There has been some data saying that across the United States that there has been a rise in targeted hate crime to the LGBTQ community. Does APD track this, and is that something on your radar?
We track all incidents for use of force purposes. Now, when we come to where there is a potential bias or a hate crime nexus, We track all of those too. We also have our victim services unit to where if it does not get entered in as a hate crime, it could just be a hate information, meaning there could be, we don't quite know. Whoever's providing us the information, because sometimes it comes in through 311. If we believe there could be a hate crime nexus there, then we go ahead and title it that. It then, within either 24 or 48 hours, our victim services is required to follow up and make contact with the complainant to verify, what do we have here? Is this a hate crime? And then, if so, initiate that investigative process. And so we have various touch points that we want to make sure that anything that might have a hate bias to it immediately gets followed up on. And yes, we do track.
Excellent.
A couple of other things in addition to that is we scrub our records and our narratives. So there's certain keywords that periodically our records division look for. So that could be indicative of something that would be a hate crime. And those would trigger that review. There is a hate crimes review process that we go through. One of the other things that happened after a gay couple was attacked in downtown Austin several years ago is through the work of several of our officers with their cooperation with some of the gay bars that were downtown, were able to locate video that helped us identify who those suspects were. And we were able to bring them forward and arrest the 4 individuals that were involved with that in a very timely manner. But out of that, we brought a program that was first started in Seattle called the Safe Place Initiative, which was a partnership between businesses and law enforcement where we can create a safe haven for individuals to go to should they feel like they were targeted and remain safe until the police arrived. I was recently at a business up off of 51st Street, and they had the stickers, and they were just telling me that it was a week ago that an individual had gone in who had felt that they were being targeted and had utilized that service. So those are some of the other things that we're trying to do as well to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks or as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm aware of Seattle has a great program. And that would be great if we implemented something similar. So it sounds to me, you have a lot of resources, both on this commission and within the city, of people who are in the community, who understand the community, and we can help provide feedback to you guys. I think, in my opinion, that anytime a major incident occurs, it should automatically trigger a report both to this commission and city. I think a community review panel would be something that would be helpful both for us and for APD, specifically around LGBTQ. Would that be something APD would be open to?
Yes.
Great. That's all the questions I had.
Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you all very much for being here. Last week, I was lucky enough to go see Kylie Minogue at the Moody Center. And if you were there, as I jokingly say, half of gay Austin was there. Okay? So, in the basking of the afterglow of that fabulous show, I got to thinking, what would have happened if something happened at the Moody Center with 12 to 15,000 people in there, and I dare say 90% were gay, queer, however you want to, call yourself. So I was thinking, what is happening today to keep 4th Street safe? Because with the proliferation of guns, all it's going to take, and I'm sure someone's already thinking about it, because of what's happening down at the Pink Dome and in D.C. and the craziness that's going on in D.C., coming down there and just shooting up people. And we do not have the bottles, the rocks, and the bricks that our forebears at Stonewall had to fight back. We have that, but it doesn't, it's might as well be a peace shooter. I want to know what's happening to keep 4th Street safe, because if you don't know, we don't have a neighborhood in this city. We live everywhere. It's not like Dallas or Houston, New York, Chicago. So, 4th Street is it for the most part. The second thing is, and piggybacking off of that, we have Pride coming up. Thousands and thousands of people are going to be at that parade. I fear that something's going to happen. I want to know what plans are, nothing specific, obviously, but I want to know what's happening in the planning stages for that.
So I'll talk to 4th Street first. As the downtown area commander, I have the lieutenants make assignments every single weekend, and I know that I've talked to Commissioner Neal about this, and we have those officers in that area, and we assign them to that area, as well as we're assigning them to 6th Street and other areas. And so every single weekend, we assign specific officers to patrol that area and be in that area specifically. Now, they're not going to sit there in a car right there on that area. We have them moving about, and if you haven't heard, we've got a new detective unit down there, the Downtown Austin Rapid Response Team. They've been doing some operations in the area as well. There's been officers down there in that area every weekend, and so they are moving in and about. I think we did have one weekend where the officers there made an arrest and had to leave, and so there was a brief time period where there was a gap there, but they have been there, and even when you don't see them there, I promise you they're there, because we have those undercover officers that are down there in that area, and so they get assigned there every single weekend. We've also gone back to districting out the downtown area so that officers are assigned to certain districts. So say it's a Monday night down there, we still have officers assigned to that district area that are patrolling it.
And some additional details. We also have our RTFs, which is our rapid response team. It's a multidiscipline response team that is posted up in our downtown area should there be an active shooter type incident. They are there. They are a quick reaction force. They are to stop the killing, stop the dying, and do a rapid casualty evac. And they are exceedingly effective at what they do. And so it is a police officer, a fire, and a paramedic that are all teamed up together, and they will deploy when in what we call a warm zone, meaning there's still an active threat potentially going on, but they are there to get whatever medical attention is needed to start triaging and transporting patients. And I'll be happy to share some of the information, some of the stats with the commission, because they're an impressive team. In addition to that, speaking to the Pride Parade directly, we have those quick reaction forces, the RTFs there. In addition to, we have our special response team that is stood up for our Pride Parade. They will be on the periphery to stand by just to make sure that any of the attendees or those participants on the parade are safe. In addition, we monitor any kind of open source data. Our Austin Regional Intelligence Center monitors to make sure, just in case something starts to pick up on social media, we hear something, they will automatically start following and paying attention. We also, of course, get reports out from the federal government who give us tracks, trends, any kind of emerging threats that they hear are also shared with us. And so we are constantly monitoring and doing everything that we can to make sure our community is safe.
I really, really, really appreciate that. Not that I go down the 4th of Colorado anymore, but my younger siblings are all down there all the time. And it worries me that someone in a big old truck is going to come through. There are evidence of those sort of situations everywhere in this country. Mm-hmm. There's a guy from DFW who went to El Paso to a Walmart. Nobody knew who he was until he started shooting people up. I just want to make sure that that's not going to happen, especially at Pride. And or at the Pride celebration that afternoon. So Please, please, please be diligent. I know that you will be. Just do what you can to make sure that that doesn't happen, because they are trying to take over the city of Austin. I'm telling you, there's so much evidence that that other side is trying to do what they can to make Austin not what it is. Thanks.
Yes, Commissioner.
That's all I had.
We also do offer free training to any of the nightclubs downtown. It's called Stop the Bleed. And so should there be an active attack incident, we will help the club owners understand what they should do as responsible club owners to, of course, do what they can to turn on the lights of the club, stop the music, somebody call 911. We'll actually provide higher level trauma kits free of charge to the club, but then also work with their employees. This is how you use it. This is how you apply a tourniquet. This is how you cordon casualties in one location. That way you're not trying to work on patients in a variety of locations, co-locate them one place, help to set up an evacuation point, have somebody outside to flag down officers. So we do that free of charge to any nightclub that'll have us. More than happy to do that. Cool. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Kruger.
Thank you for being here. First, I just want to acknowledge the tension that I feel in the room. My heart is pounding right now, and it's never pounding in these meetings. And so there are just so many power dynamics at play right now, and intersecting identities and history. And I just want to say that out loud and bring it into the open, because I'm hearing it in people's voices shaking, and just want to commend everyone for having the courage to show up today, because we all made a choice to be here, and this is part of having a more accountable and transparent government. So I just thank everyone here for being here, even when our voices shake. So thank you for that. I had the fortune of talking with 2 of 3 of you last month at the Human Rights Commission meeting, and so I want to make space for other commissioners first to ask questions, but if there is time at the end, I have a couple questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Wollerson.
Thanks, everyone. I'm glad someone mentioned, I think y'all actually brought it up to remind us about the liaison position, the community liaison position. Can you clarify there's a specific position funded for the LGBTQ community, or is it part of the office that covers other communities? Can you clarify that?
Oh, no, it is specific for. Now, understand there are other job duties and responsibilities, sure, but they are specific for that. That is correct.
That's great. I feel like I've been on the commission for 8 years. I feel like historically we've had more of an engagement with that position than we have probably in the last several years. So just a comment, and there may not be truth to that. It's just an observation that we've not had as much engagement with that role. So just wanted to share that. And then question around, I guess I'm unclear around the level of transparency. It sounds like the incident that was shared with us earlier today, that incident is still under review. When those incidents are complete, the investigation is wrapped up, what degree of transparency do we have as a community around the outcome of that? Or is parts of that information sealed and not available to the public? Can you clarify that?
Yes, sir, I can. And so anything related to our department operations that is no longer in a position to where we are concerned with an ongoing investigation can be made available through an open records request. But we do not traditionally just publish outcomes of investigations. That would be too voluminous. We just have too many. But through an open records request, that information could be provided.
And does that request initiate at the police office, or where would one, just out of curiosity, if folks are in the room, curious about the outcome? Mm-hmm. Do we go through the city clerk's office? Like, what is that process to get those records?
You could just submit a request through. There's an email address that you can submit that. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then last question I had, because it was just something that I wrote down as we were talking about safety concerns leading up to Pride and other celebrations. With the ongoing impact of federal funds being cut and the threat of state funds as well being cut, the issues that we're having at a city budget level around our own ongoing deficit. Can you help us understand, from y'all's perspective, the impact of any of those cuts to the ongoing safety of our community, particularly around funding offices around the liaison and other special roles? I'm just growing increasingly concerned that that we'll, at every level of our, I think, experience as citizens, that we're going to continue sort of feeling the squeeze of those cuts. And I just would appreciate any thing that y'all are experiencing, particularly, again, as we're talking about safety leading up to Pride and other celebrations.
Commissioner, thank you for the question. So as of yet, all the impacts have been minimal. Understand when it comes to providing safety for our community, we still have the capability of moving our personnel as Chief Davis directs in order to make sure any kind of staffing shortage that needs to be made up for, we can do it just by reallocating personnel. So while we are under very strict budget constraints and the city is in a position to where we are having to look at possibly scaling back on some of our spending when it comes to the maintaining the basic security that we know we need to maintain for an event, we have means of adjusting where our personnel are working in order to make sure the appropriate personnel are in attendance in order to maintain that safety level. We have that latitude.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Fiora-Perez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you all taking the time to come speak to us. I have a few questions. This is for any of you that would like to answer. I myself am a policy and compliance person, so I'd like some clarity on some things. You mentioned that the investigation is still ongoing, which from my understanding has been shared that that information is not shared with the public and the community. If that is the case, if this investigation is still ongoing, why would PD put out a statement or host a press conference stating that the officers involved in the assault of the trans woman was within policy? Why make a definitive statement in support of the actions of those officers if there is still an ongoing investigation?
Yes. So when we placed out that statement, that was a preliminary review of the officers' conduct. So please understand, in the time that we had to respond to that inquiry, there wasn't an opportunity to do a from start to finish look at everything. So in the time in which we needed to provide a statement, that comprehensive review, we did not have an opportunity to do so. However, the preliminary review, based on the information that we had, we felt comfortable putting out that statement.
Okay. Do you have a timeline of when you expect that to be completed?
I can't, no, I don't. I don't believe it should take that much longer, though, and it could be wrapped up. I don't have that information to share with the commission right now. It could be finished already.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I can understand why the police officers involved were following the letter of the law, right? You talked about that being within policy. Do you believe that the trans woman was treated appropriately in that video? And if not, do you believe that there need to be any changes in policy to prevent any of these kinds of assaults on our community?
Thank you for the question. So in our preliminary review, the officer's conduct was within policy and procedure. As stated before, we are always open to reviewing our policies and practices to see if improvements can be made.
Can you walk me through what that process looks like? How is policy changed? Does that have to go through city council?
No, we can provide you with our policy, and we take feedback from commissions, from the Office of Police Oversight. We have a professional review committee that is instilled at the training academy that looks at our policies and procedures, and so that recommendation can come in from this commission.
Okay. Have y'all had recommendations in the past?
We have.
For incidents like that? How often are those recommendations made actual changes?
fairly frequently. The Office of Police Oversight continually reviews our operations, policies, procedures. Sometimes it could be random on their own because they can access our policies at any time. So we could get a random request to change a policy or provide a policy recommendation in addition to any sort of incident or investigation that's conducted. There is a policy associated with that investigation. So they are reviewing that policy as that case is going on. At the conclusion of the case, they can then provide a recommendation on policy changes if they choose to. In addition to, I mentioned the professional, the PAC out at the training academy, they review our policies and procedures too. And then we also have a community advisory committee that we just stood that one up. I believe they've only had one meeting thus far, but they review all of our academics and policies related to cadet training. Please understand, it is a process because depending on what lesson plan or what policy they are reviewing, it takes time. And understand that there's a lot of policies and a lot of lesson plans surrounding what we train our officers and train our cadets. So I don't want to give the impression as though the entire curriculum is being reviewed continually all the time. It's typically by a section of policy or by a particular lesson plan. And then once that review process is completed and they provide recommendations to the training academy will then review those recommendations. They will then see, can we incorporate the recommendations? Most times that they are. Rare occasions that we can't do that. And then if they can, we then report back out to the PAC or the CAC what was incorporated, and then if something wasn't incorporated, why it wasn't. And same with the Office of Police Oversight.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
2 more questions. You mentioned earlier that community members can file complaints, right, whether anonymously or not, and that there is a process and an investigation that follows. How often are officers held accountable when an incident or inquiry is made? I imagine you have some of those stats. Is it, 1 out of every 5, 1 out of every 50, 500? What do the accountability rates look like?
Thank you for that question. I will have to come back to you with those specific rates. But yes, we do track outcomes related to investigations. Please know that the Office of Police Oversight has then their separate tracking system that they do based on when I mentioned that they give us recommendations on discipline. And then if we go outside their recommendation, they provide a memo to Chief Davis to where she then has to respond. So they have their own system of tracking outcomes related to investigations based on their recommendations. In addition, we have our own internal tracking, and happy to provide that to the commission.
Yes, thank you so much. My last question, and I would like a yes or no answer from any of you on this. You all have mentioned the importance of treating community members with dignity and respect. Do any of you feel that the trans woman in that video was treated with dignity and respect?
I believe the officers that were on scene handled that incident as best that they could with what they had at the time. There's no indication that they were attempting to demoralize or put down or demean or do anything to degrade the individual that they were dealing with, that there was intent on the officer's part to do that.
Okay, so no yes or no answer.
Just to make sure I answer it correctly, can you ask the question again?
Just the yes or no if you believe that the trans woman in the video was treated with dignity and respect that day.
Yes, I believe they were.
No questions anymore.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, my mic was off. Tragic. Thank you all so much for being here. I am a community stakeholder, so what that means is I don't represent a specific district, but rather my community as a whole. I am a trans individual, and so this incident really has obviously been a topic of conversation amongst our community. So I guess I just would like to share from the community's perspective, just if y'all don't mind hearing me. So it's hard for us to hear with the press release that, this was okay, that this force was sanctioned. When it basically, what we're hearing, or what I'm hearing, I'll just speak for myself, is that the procedures, these sanctioned actions, which we saw was harm against our community, these are okay. So I guess that's kind of where we're having this disagreement here, or kind of not seeing eye to eye, because to us, or to me, what I'm hearing is that that was completely okay for her face to be smashed and for her to be brutalized and have blood all over the page. Like, that's what I'm hearing. The officers followed procedure, which I understand. Like, I'm hearing that that's what y'all are saying. But I just want you to see from our perspective, how is that okay for the people that y'all are supposed to serve and protect to have their faces smashed on the concrete? And so that's, again, what we're seeing, and we're doing our best to have these conversations. But I guess for us, I don't see how that is okay. I don't see how that action is sanctioned. And I guess that goes back to, maybe we need to change the policy. The policy says that this is okay. But just like speaking as human beings, I don't know how we got to that point, how that point is policy for that incident to be reviewed, and for just based on the optics and all that it's okay. I don't understand how that is the baseline when there was already so much violence in that incident. So I guess I just want y'all to see that we're just, as a community, we're just having a hard time understanding how violence is policy, I guess. Another thing, just to kind of be aware of, we are losing our spaces. So there is a drag show that has happened every single week at a venue in Austin. It's not a gay bar, but recently these drag queens went in to do their show like they do every single week. Ownership had changed, and the queens were met with ridicule by the bar. They were chased out of the bar by patrons. They were slurs were hurled at them. They were literally chased out of the bar. These queens have been doing this show for years at this venue. This happened within the last month. So our community is seeing our spaces shrink rapidly, and it's very scary. So I was wondering, I know that APD has just a big, beautiful budget, and I was wondering if any of that, if y'all ever have like empowerment programs or like free self-defense classes for our community, because oh my gosh, I would love a free self-defense class, or maybe like free safety whistles for the community, free pepper spray, mace. I mean, I can't imagine that like safety whistles cost all that much, or that like bulk mace. I imagine y'all probably got the hookup on like some bulk pepper spray. And I'm just wondering if like these things can be given to our community, because we're going into spaces that have been home for us and being literally ridiculed out of them here in Austin, Texas. Last but not least, kind of in the same vein of just like getting supplies and just like safety supplies in the hands of our community. Ever since I obtained bruising from rubber bullets and bean bags deployed at me by APD in the summer of 2020 while protesting for the Black Lives Matter movement, I started researching Kevlar and wondering how I can either make costume pieces with Kevlar, or, something to just protect and empower our community members who are really on the front lines and can come up against whatever. But then I realized y'all have Kevlar, and I'm wondering what y'all do with like your retired bulletproof vests, like your retired like all of your like maybe like the safety equipment that y'all have that y'all don't use anymore. I'm sure maybe that goes to training, but like, I don't know, could we get some of like these maybe retired bulletproof vests in the hands of our community members? Because as we know in Texas, everybody has a gun, right? And so we're just trying to live. I'm just trying to get my Taco Bell after the gig and get home safely. And I know that y'all want to serve and protect us. And so hopefully some of these ideas can let you know like what we're thinking, and we can work together a little bit more and help y'all empower us, so we can actually feel like we're working together to protect our community. So thanks, y'all. I guess I don't really have any questions other than, will you consider these things?
I can't speak on behalf of the Austin Police Department. I can speak on behalf of the Lesbian and Gay Peace Officers Association. You bring up a ton of great ideas. I would like to try to see if there's ways that we can partner to do some things. We've done some of that in the past. The chief had talked about how there's the Stop the Bleed program. Our association had worked with EMS and fire in putting on those trainings down at the different gay bars in downtown Austin and training their personnel. And we were able to come up with other funds through our own means or through other donations. In regards to you losing your space for a trans show, I am deeply sorry for that. You are right that many of the different spaces throughout Austin and throughout the state are being withdrawn. By the same token, I think there's also ways to be innovative and look at other community members and other spaces that would want to have an amazing drag show come in and perform, but would be happy to talk about those and strategize and see if there is a possibility that we can assist with bringing different resources together for the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brookins.
First, I would like to update my vote to abstain on the meeting minutes. I just need to look at like the audio and stuff, and so I don't want to make an uninformed vote. Second, because I wasn't at the last meeting where it was discussed with requesting Austin Police Department present at commission meetings, I just want to put on wax. I really would like a heads up for when there are going to be police officers at our meetings, because I know at the town hall, multiple community members voiced displeasure with not being told ahead of time that there would be police at our meeting. Because for some of us, like, police don't necessarily make us feel safe. I know I am like the most activated that I've ever been at a meeting right now because there are people like feet away from me with guns, and it doesn't make me feel safe. So I just want to say that because I wasn't at the last meeting. And I know that I'm not the only person in our queer community that feels that way. So moving on, thank you. Moving on to my questions. So I just looked up to make super sure that I wasn't going to say any misinformation. So the police department released a statement on March 2nd at 2:30 a.m. that says, and I quote, "The Force Review Unit reviewed the incident and determined the use of force was within law and policy." So they said that about the thing that we've been talking about a lot today, which is the brutalization of this trans woman. It did not say anything in this report about it being an ongoing case and that it was being reviewed. So I think in this regard, I want to just ask, is there a possibility to issue an updated press release given that people were not given a full picture of like what was actually happening? Because it feels very open and shut right now based on this press release. Like, we looked at it, this is over, we're done, we're moving on. So I want to just formally ask for that from y'all.
We'll consider it.
Sure. Okay. So I also want to say, and this might just be because I wasn't at the last meeting and I haven't listened to the audio quite yet, but I know that there was an incident. I don't know how much y'all work with code compliance, but I would assume y'all do, with the shutting down of Rain on 4th last month, I believe, with a claim of being like over capacity, and Rain was like forced to empty the space and conduct like people recounts. Are y'all familiar with this?
That
Yes?
happened on March 15th.
March 15th. Great. So I don't know if there was any statement about that. Might y'all like know what the status of this is? And perhaps also like, Scott, you might have an update on this as well. But yeah, what do y'all have on that?
That was in a process that was initiated by code compliance, and they would be the appropriate entity to provide statement related to that.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up on that.
You want me to add context?
Yes, go ahead.
To this one? So I believe during South by Southwest, Austin creates these specialized units called PACE units. And they consist of different officers and representatives from various departments: Austin Fire, Austin Police, and Austin Code Compliance. These teams of city representation and enforcement travel around. And they do this so that they can quickly take action based on either APD or Austin Fire Marshal's authority. So there was a APD officer from the beginning in the PACE team that entered Rain. We believe that the error made was on Austin Code Compliance's side, but we're still investigating on our side. And we're currently waiting to receive the body cam video from APD, from the officer that was there during the whole time.
It would be great if we could get a follow-up from y'all on that situation. I know it's under code compliance, but an APD officer was present when that happened. So I also want to say, so y'all were here from the beginning of our meeting today where you heard Miriam say all of those potential anti-queer and anti-trans laws that could potentially be passed statewide. I would like to know from y'all, since we're talking about inclusion, since we're talking about equity, should Texas pass a law that says, I don't know, queer people are not allowed to be queer at school, and now, therefore, people can file complaints? Will you all be enforcing those potentially anti-queer laws?
We are not in a space to dictate what the state should and should not do. We are here to enforce the law as it is deemed appropriate by the state legislature and then by the city of Austin. And understand, as a law enforcement entity, this is just the space in which we exist. Whether or not we believe is not our position to be in. We are dictated by those leaders that have been put in place that then basically give us the parameters in which we operate. And whether or not a state passes a law that we agree with is inconsequential to how we basically carry forward. Understand, the state legislature or either the city of Austin could put restraints, perimeters, laws in place that we are then required to enforce, and that's the position in which we find ourselves. We would be derelict in our duty if we then said we are not going to enforce something that the state has dictated. That's something that we do. Or either the city says, hey, city or police department, this is something you shall or will not do. Whichever one that is, we are required to do it as it exists in our positions.
So a thing I like to do in my free time is post on my social media some good trans news. Because in the midst of all of the bad things that happen in the world, I like to at least post one thing that people can rely upon. And I actually just posted a video 3 days ago where Maine decided not to comply with anti-trans laws. And that was the Maine Department of Education, that was the Maine governor, that was a group of people that came together to say, yes, this is the law of the land, but we are going to agree not to comply it. I would behoove y'all to have courage. In the face of our community being brutalized, in the face of y'all trying to create a good relationship with us, it unsettles me that if we have anti-queer and anti-trans laws, y'all will just be oh, I don't make the laws, I just enforce them. That doesn't make me feel safe, right, as a queer and trans person in the city of Austin. So I would behoove y'all to rethink that approach to this, because now we do actually have examples of entire states agreeing not to comply with transphobic law. And I think, sure, I don't know, President Trump is going to be I'm so mad. Or Governor whoever, Abbott, may be I'm so mad. But shouldn't we live in a world in which we would rather make anti-trans people mad than to just go with the flow? So that's just a thing to consider, especially given y'all have an LGBTQ plus union. Those things will negatively affect even your queer officers. So I just want to put that in the room. Last thing that I would like to ask about is reimagining public safety. Have y'all been on the force since like 2020, 2021, a number of y'all? So I remember being in Austin in the summer of 2020 and constant protests happening, some of which I saw Commissioner Anderson at too. And I know that there was an effort, like a citywide effort put in place to do a thing called Reimagine Public Safety. And there was a task force put together. Like, those records are still accessible for anybody who would like to go look them up. And when I tried to go to Reimagine Public Safety today, the dashboard where we're supposed to be being accountable to the community, it said page not found. Like, in every single link that I tried to go to, it said page not found. So who is to say in like a year when this like passes through our media churn and we're not talking about this anymore, that those records and those things that have been done won't go away in the way that they went away with reimagining public safety? I guess I'm asking you, like, what is the long game of being supportive of our community? How can you guarantee that y'all will be here even when someone is not brutalized, even when it's not in the news? Yeah.
For me, as somebody who's been in this career nearly 40 years and started the career before I could be my authentic self, because most agencies would ask you when you applied if you were or were not, and ask you that question when you were hooked to a polygraph. And if you failed, it barred you from working in any government entity within the state of Texas. For me, I think we are always looking to find a way to be better, and to build better and stronger relationships. And I think we do that by continuing the dialogue and moving things forward. With the Reimagining Police, I was part of that. There was a point in time where we were not asked to be at the table, but then eventually we were asked to be at the table. And I think that dialogue needs to continue. I don't know what laws will come out of the legislature or what won't, what will make final and what will not. I do know that I have some discretion in my role as a police officer from time to time. There are certain things that I'm able to do and there's certain things that I am not, and those will have to be a personal moral decision that I have to make, being a queer law enforcement officer. And I think that there's others that will make that same decision. What I do hope from today and moving forward is that we continue the dialogue. If we're not talking to each other, if we're not trying to figure it out, it makes it much harder for us to find out what is the best solution moving forward for our community, and having input. So that's where I sit in my role, is trying to figure out which is the right way to move forward and continue so that we can keep everybody safe. I intend to be a peace officer and to do anything and everything I can to keep any citizen of Austin safe, no matter whom they are, no matter whom they love, no matter how they identify. That's the oath that I swore to, and I have in no way am I going to deny my oath and moving forward from that.
And just to kind of circle back on passing of laws, please understand Sergeant Crumrine spoke to discretion, but also whether or not we will make a decision to proactively pursue. We do have that discretion. Now, however, if we choose to then take a certain action, then we are bound by following what law is on the books based on whatever investigation we are conducting. However, whether or not we choose to initiate that investigation, we do have that discretion. Does that make sense?
It does. I just still want us to ask for more. But I do want to just say a couple of things that we've said that we follow up on. So, giving us an update on coordinating a town hall. I think that's something that Commissioner Coyne asked for. I would love if y'all could follow up on Bridget's concern with the male or female. So, like, that has happened to me as well as a trans person, like someone asking me unnecessarily if I'm male or female, like that matters. And then also LGBTQ plus representative from the force coming and being in regular dialogue with us, I suppose. And then accountability rights for community members, which Commissioner Fierro Perez asked for. And then I would love personally, especially an update on whether or not this press release is going to be updated so our community can actually be informed of what the force is doing as it relates to that incident. So yeah, you got a number of things to do, and I look forward to hearing about them. Thanks.
Commissioner Davis.
Thank you so much for being here. Excuse me. May I ask, how many of our community are on the force right now?
How many LGBTQ?
Yes, sir.
We don't track that specifically because not everybody is out. Not everybody is that way. I can tell you that I have 171 dues-paying members. They're not all queer identifying. Some are allies. And then I have 68 auxiliary members, which are either other members of the community or retirees or stuff like that. But I know that I don't have everybody who's queer identified as a member in our department. So I know that there's others than that.
And a selfish question a bit. One time it was mentioned during the meeting, forgive me for pointing, but it was mentioned that there is insurance specifically for the trans individuals on your force. Is that true?
Correct. It's not just for our members. Mm-hmm. So an incident happened with one of our trans officers where he was paying quite a bit more for medication that cisgender individuals were getting at it that were not the same, or that they were getting, but he was paying quite a bit more for them. That information was brought to our chief of police, who subsequently took this to city council and pushed for it. And so the city of Austin saw the value in that. And ever since that time, and this was in, I believe, 2016, they require that every time the city of Austin puts out for bid for their insurance, that it has full transgender health care benefits as part of that. So any city of Austin employee now has full transgender health care benefits that are included in the insurance that the city of Austin pays for.
Thank you.
Commissioner Trevino.
Hi. So I'm kind of just curious what accountability looks like at this point when it comes to, the officer. We know that investigation may or may not still be ongoing, and any type of consequences or discipline would be TBD. But as far as APD overall, we were talking about dignity and respect earlier, and you had mentioned that there was no intent to discriminate or disrespect this person, but that was the outcome. Like when it comes to intent versus outcome, I think we need to look at both. And when any other member of the public harms someone, whether it's intentional or not, they are held accountable under the law. So curious where y'all think APD can and should go from here, understanding that this was not the only, that officer's action was not the only option, right? There could have been other things that could have been done that would have had a less violent outcome.
Thank you for the question. And so understand part of the investigation is always evaluating whether or not an officer could have handled a incident differently. Time, space, distance, additional officers on scene. And so that is part of the review that is done, is to, hey, can we either, whether it's a counseling session with the officer, whether it is a training that the officer needs to be sent to, that is part of the review that is done when we look at the use of force incident. Now, understand, we are not beholden. We don't have to. Well, we can't send an officer to training unless an incident happens or a use of force incident that we have concerns with. at any time, we can send our officers to training and then have expected performance changes based on providing that training.
Is that all you? Okay, got it. Commissioner McLeod, back to you.
I have questions around the APD Oversight Committee office. I'm very curious, what is the composition of the folks that are sitting within that office?
And the Office of Police Oversight is actually not an entity of APD. They are owned separate and distinct. And so as far as the composition of that would be best explained by the Office of Police Oversight. And my apologies, I just don't, that's just not within my area of purview. But I'm certain Ms. McCant, she's the director of the Office of Police Oversight. She would be more than happy to come to the commission and either present directly or either just answer any questions that the commission might have.
Okay. Then I guess as a follow-up question, when looking at internal affairs and the community advisory committee, what is the composition of those?
Yes, so those are actually made up with community members is on one of the advisory commissions to review curriculum, and another one is the professional review committee. And I have write-ups on both that can comprise those both individual committees, and I'm happy to share that out. One thing related to the OPO, I do know there is an intake process, there is investigators, and then there's those that they have a person who does, I talked about that will get those policy reviews, and so those are just some components that I know exist within the OPO, but like I said, Ms. McCant, the director of the OPO, would be best to speak to all the individual facets and components and what the job duties and then kind of the breakdown of her personnel and staff and what they do.
Okay. My concern is if these committees, these offices, these groups of individuals who are responsible for review are also of APD, how are we ensuring that there is not bias in any reviews, whether it's excessive force or any other cases, reports, complaints that are coming to your office?
And so just want to clarify, those that do the curriculum review are not associated with the police department. They are not from within the department. Now, there's another entity that is being stood up now that we have a contract in place, and that is going to be the use of force. It's going to be the CPRC. So hold on, you're going to have to give me just a second to come up with the acronym, what that stands for. But the CPRC is another external entity made up of community members that just do review of use of force incidents. And so understand that there are a lot of external evaluations that are done from individuals that are not associated with the Austin Police Department. And that is something that's been in place for years. And so that continual evaluation from an external standpoint is continuous and ongoing and has been for several years.
I believe the CPRC that you're referring to is the Community Police Review Commission.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't have any further questions, but I do just want to name and thank both Commissioner Kruger and Commissioner Brookins for mentioning the discomfort in the air. I'm a pole dancer and my hands don't get this sweaty when I'm even trying to climb. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be remiss of me to not state that when I think of dignity and when I think of respect, that having my face put on concrete where people walk with their feet and where dogs and other animals and sometimes even other humans defecate or may use the restroom is not my definition of dignity or respect. And I think that I can speak for everyone in here when we say at minimum that that treatment is not in line at all with those values or with these ways in which that you're saying that our police officers should be acting. But I do appreciate your time and I appreciate you being here and answering all of these questions, and I'm looking forward to follow up.
Commissioner McLeod. Thank you very much. Commissioner Kruger.
Thank you. Do any of the other commissioners have follow-up questions first before I take up more time?
And I will give my questions at the end.
Okay, I saw two of these commissioners have follow-up questions. I'll let them take up some, three. Oh, so many follow-ups. Okay, just because I had a chance last month to ask questions, I just want to give space to other folks first.
Okay, so what, one, thank you. Seriously, we're here to assist. We're here to offer our knowledge of our community and our experiences, and hope that they result in improvement, right? As we identify some areas we need to grow in. I know that y'all care. That's clear. You're here, right? I know Michael. I understand that there is a desire to make sure that the community's concerns are heard. And I certainly hear that from APD on its officer side, and certainly high up. My concern is, that what I see on the ground sometimes doesn't match the language. I know that the community has been evolving, the LGBTQ community has been evolving quite rapidly, especially on the identity side, and it can be hard for an organization to really keep up. And there are going to be some struggles in those areas. I really am going to want to know more about y'all's training, because to me, this all goes back to training. And Austin has its own police academy. So I would sort of like to know, when was the last time y'all reviewed at the high up level? I know Chief Davis is fairly new, but I would encourage a review of y'all's training processes. And I don't have the expertise to know where to focus it on, but there clearly needs to be additional effort put in so that officers on the ground, are better informed on how to engage with not just our community, Jesus. I mean, that's the thing. This video was of a trans woman who, frankly, was, it's pretty brutal. But that's the only reason this has gotten to this light is because they're trans, right? I mean, this probably happens every night on 6th Street, and that's a problem, right? In my mind, that's a problem to me. I'm not saying that this type of force is never needed. What I see as the problem is that when it happens, the reaction, as has been pointed out already, is protect each other on the force, and not one of a reflection and a questioning of how can we do it better. At least that's not expressed. And I think that I understand why you may desire and feel the need to protect, especially when you're feeling threatened from everyone. But I want to stress that my goal is not to threaten APD here. My goal is to start a conversation to figure out how can we help empower y'all with our expertise on how to better train officers on the ground when it comes to engaging with our community members. So that's frankly what I have to say. I would like to know, Assistant Chief, soon to be Chancellor, you've been, how many years were you at the Academy?
As the commander for only about 10 months.
10 months. And that was fairly recently, right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you describe to me a little bit, I'm sure there's an outline of the overall training, values and process, because to me, that's where I just want to dig in a little bit.
Yeah, and so the foundation of the training has to be around TCOL requirements because that's the state's governing board, right? And so you've got 730-something hours, 736 hours of training that you have to build out the way that they've asked us to. As far as the rest of the training, we try and build in everything we can to have the cadets experience the community and the way things we do here. There are academies out there that you can go and get your peace officer license in 4 months, 4.5 months. That's not what we're interested in. You're going to be in the academy really for 8-9 months. You're going to start with that pre-academy where we start you with the community, where you are embedded in all of these different groups. And so from there, the curriculum is built out in progressions, so that we put you through role plays and other things, and until you get to where you need to be at. Now, Chief Henderson spoke earlier about the couple committees that we have, the Professional Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Council, and then there's also a TCOL board. There's a lot of oversight groups, right? So when we look at what you're asking me, the Professional Advisory Committee is made up of internal APD members and external, and we have people that are subject matter experts in adult learning and things like that, and we will bring on people, for example, someone from the School for the Deaf training that we do, right? And we will coordinate with them and make sure that our training, it goes through this professional advisory committee. Everyone looks at it, and we make suggestions. It goes to these professionals that are adult learning experts. They make recommendations. It comes back to us, and we go, well, can we implement this? Does it fall within our TCOL standards? And then we will have someone, we'll take that, and we'll take it to the Community Advisory Council, which is a group of outside civilians, and we present that to them, and we say, hey, here's this material. What do you think about this? And if we have the opportunity to take it in front of a group from, say, the School for the Deaf, since I'm just following this procedure, then we will, and we'll present and say, hey, where can we do better here? Okay, now that we've got the lesson plan put together, let's look at our role plays or the scenarios that we put cadets through, okay? Now, how can we work with you to have members of your community come out and participate in these role plays so that we can work on these things together? And so that's how that is built out. We do have a lot of civilian I don't want to say instructors, civilian personnel out at the academy now helping build that out. We had civilians that built out the Professional Advisory Committee, the Community Advisory Council, and these different groups, and they're coordinating these outside things so that we can put together the best training that we possibly can. And it goes through everything, right? But it takes a while to get through this. You're looking at, a 4-hour block of training might take, 30 to 45 days to get implemented into there, and then it might not be an academy class going through that for several more months, right? And so we use it that way.
So I guess, in some sense, it's there's so much crammed into the academy. I cannot. Do y'all have any ideas, as to additional efforts that y'all are considering or, just on the, top of your mind, certainly not held to it, but just efforts that APD could do to better train, certainly in some of these areas, increase awareness and sensitivity to, our very diverse community.
Yeah, and so what you just said, there's so much material, right? So a cadet gets something week 1, and by week 4, they've forgotten half of what they learned in week 1, and we try and reinstill it, right? It's tough, right? But this is why we put our field training officers through continuing education training every year. They get recertified in it, and so we put them through the classes that they need to go through. We have a civilian personnel that's over that field training program and puts together what they need. And so a lot of the time, say if we continue on the same subject we were talking about with School for Death, we just re-up this training and everything. So when we do that, we're going to look at that and go, okay, we just redid this training, right? And so these cadets all know it, but these field training officers might not know it. And so we need to put them through it, right? And so that what they see on the street matches what they're learning in the academy, because absolutely what they see on the streets from these other officers is the direction they're going to think, okay, this is how this works in real life. And so we absolutely follow up with making sure that the people training them have this. And we also have those classes for the in-service personnel. Now, keep in mind, I'm sure y'all already aware, we're short-staffed. The state mandates X amount of training every 2 years. A lot of that's online training. There's additional mandates that come out every single year. And so it is hard for us to get back and get every single in-service officer through all the different trainings that we offer and how we update cadets through. So we may put out training bulletin, or we may do updates virtually for the in-service officers to look at and be able to see, okay, this is the way the cadets are being trained. This is the way we're doing things now and following through.
And Chief Henderson, how do y'all measure the effectiveness of these types of training exercises? I can understand that that's quite a difficult task to do.
Oh, excellent question. And correct, it is difficult to do. So there are several check-ins, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better term, to ensure that our cadets are approaching what they are learning through being trauma-informed, victim-centered. And so, of course, we have the written examination that they do, but then there are also role plays that we set up to test their competency skills in live action. And so those are evaluated. It could be by our victim services personnel. We also have, depending on what the scenario is, it could be detectives from our child abuse unit that do the evaluation. It could be detectives if it's a sex crimes type scenario, then it'll be our sex crimes detectives. And so understand, we try and build into those training elements the actual performance of the cadet, saying, yes, they've actually understand not just the material, but they also understand how they are going to interact with community members. So it's not just you need to have the written knowledge of the information, know what you can and can't enforce, but the level of expectation of engagement with the community member, making sure that they have that element of empathy, compassion, understanding when they have those interactions. And also, so that's during cadet class. Then after they graduate, they are on a field training program for 3 months. During that time, Chief Chancellor spoke to the field training officer that they are with. They ride out with that field training officer for 3 months. It's required. In that time, every single day, they are getting a written evaluation based on a whole series of components, and happy to share what they're being evaluated on. In addition to that, they have to do a neighborhood portfolio exercise where they have to identify a project in their community that is affecting the community. It's series of break-ins in vehicles. It could be graffiti, you name it. And while they are on that probationary time, they are then required to engage with those stakeholders who can help implement a long-term sustainable solution to alleviate whatever that issue is within that individual unique community. And so understand they are on probation for another 15 months after they graduate. And then it's not until after that they get their civil service protection. Now, understand, even after they get cut loose with their FTO, we call it solo, meaning they're not having to ride with their FTO, they are still required to do monthly evaluations by the supervisor that's on the shift. In addition to that, there are also random audits that are done of the body-worn camera that are generated by the system that we utilize. It's called Axon. So Axon will generate random videos for the supervisor to then review to make sure an officer is following the standards set forth by the Austin Police Department. Also, please know that that random audit then gets sent to our risk management unit to make sure the supervisor is doing the audit, but then also identifying those key terms, interactions, to make sure that they are complying with policy. Now, understand, we're not perfect. Simple. We're just not. But we're doing everything that we can to make sure our officers understand the expectations, and then that we have safeguards in place to identify when they're not, and then take corrective action when needed.
I'm sorry, let me just clarify. Did you just say you're doing everything y'all can?
We believe at this point in time, correct.
Okay.
Can we always do more? Absolutely.
I guess that I don't want to take up too much more time. A few follow-up questions from other commissioners. Sorry, but the last thing, I guess, there are two other points. Tracking complaints. I'm just trying to think about. Okay, I hear the training, I hear the evaluation, I hear all of that's internal, right? I know we have the Office of Police Oversight that's not within APD, that's still getting set up and working its way in. But how do y'all, are y'all tracking complaints from the community on officers? I'm just trying to think about how you get the data back that you have a problem or that you need to put additional resources on this particular officer in this area.
Yes. And so, yes, we track every single officer and every single complaint that comes in.
And who's reviewing that?
It all depends on the nature of the complaint and what level of investigation it rises to. Now, it is uncustomary that a complaint comes in that a chain of command is not aware of, unless from the onset, but even from the onset, even from the onset, let's say there's a review and what is reviewed by internal affairs is not necessarily a complaint, meaning reviewed it and everything. Let's say somebody gets complaints because they were issued a traffic citation. They look at it, the radar is there. Yes, they were issued a traffic citation, which was within policy. However, if there is dialogue that the officer had that we have concerns with, that is not within our expectations, it could rise to the level of, we call it a Class C memo, with a level of expectation that the officer is going to receive training. It could rise to the level of a Class B investigation, meaning the officer is eligible for discipline that's less than 15 days. Or it could rise to the level of the conduct that the officer engaged in. They are looking at an indefinite suspension. Although the traffic citation was all within policy. And so it depends on what type of conduct that the officer engages in that then dictates the extent, I guess, if you will, the review. But every single chain of command knows a complaint comes in on an officer if there's some sort of review process. There could be something that OPO intakes that then doesn't necessarily get sent over to APD, potentially, depending on what the complaint is. But anything that hits the internal affairs inbox, there is some sort of report out back to the chain of command on the officer and what the status of the investigation is and whether or not a formal investigation is going to be initiated.
Much appreciated. It's a new puzzle, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair, I do have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to share, happy to share the investigative process. That would probably be super beneficial so you can understand the steps and the stages that it goes through. Okay.
Yeah, it's just how can we help? And in many ways, we don't know how we can help until we understand how the process works. Okay. So
Absolutely. I will share that.
Follow-up questions. We're going to keep it quick. It's time to move on.
Okay. I'm sorry. I said I want to give other people a shot, but I have a couple questions that I think will elucidate maybe what you were trying to get at.
Okay, go for it, Commissioner Kruger.
Okay. Yes, police oversight implementation. So the last document that I can find is from November 2023 from the Police Oversight Implementation Work Group, putting out their progress status on both Resolution 99 and Prop A implementation. And in that document, it said 90% of Resolution 99 was considered to be in compliance, and 82% of Prop A was considered to be in compliance. But of course, that was before the police contract was signed. And so I'm curious about an update in particular, which I think was what the chair was getting at, of the G file. So of course, part of Prop A was to make those files public with public information requests. And for folks who don't know, those are internal confidential files containing complaints against police officers. So Prop A included the release of those G-file contents when folks make public information requests. And I know there have been different lawsuits, and I'm just not sure of the status of the release of those contents in the wake of the union contract and other things. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So yes, we are in the process of releasing G-file material. Now let me add some layers of process to that. We are required by state law to reply to open records request and public information request within a certain time frame. So then those files that are requested, because we are mandated to reply in a certain amount of time, take precedence. Also, please understand, a PIR request, depending on what a person asks for, then dictates how much time it's going to take to process that public information request. And so it could be something as basic as, I want to request a police report, possibly an 18-page document. That does not take very much time to produce. We find the report, we do the appropriate redactions if any are needed, and then there's a cost that we have to provide to the requester. And then as long as the requester agrees to pay that monetary amount, then that file is released. However, somebody could do a PIR where they ask for, let's say there was an investigation for a use of force incident. Well, depending on how many people were involved in that use of force incident, if that scope isn't narrowed, then we are potentially producing in-car camera, which is running for the duration of the time that the officer, or if it is one officer or 5 officers, 4 officers on a scene, producing the internal camera. So there's 2 internal cameras. There's a forward-facing camera, and then there's one in the back prisoner compartment. Then also the body-worn camera that the officer are wearing. Well, is it 1 officer? Is it 3 officers? Depending on how many officers were on scene, and then the duration in which of time they were on scene. Well, then also we have any other documents that were created, the individual officers' reports in and of themselves, any evidence that was collected, depending on what type of case it is and whether or not we can release that information. But then once we cull all that information together, well, then we have to go through the redacting process. Was some of that film inside of somebody's residence? We can't release that. Was there juveniles or children captured in any of the frames of that video? We have to go through that redaction process. And so, yes, we are working through the G-file release, but please know, depending on what is asked and the scale of what is asked for, it then dictates the timeline on whether or not we can release it, depending on how long an officer is here. I've been at the department but I haven't had too many internal affairs investigations. However, if somebody asks for my G-file, it's going to take longer to produce because I've been at the department for 28 years. However, if you ask for an officer who's only been here for 1 year, it's going to take less time for them to produce a G-file or my internal affairs records. Does that make sense? So we are working through, and they have been released, and I can provide that to the commission to the number of G-file requests that have been released. Happy to provide that, but also please know it takes precedence when we get a PIR for a G file because we are mandated to respond within a certain number of days to a PIR or either an open records request.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to see those numbers if you could send that. Do you have a sense of how many staff are dedicated to reviewing and releasing those G files?
They reside in different areas. So understand we did have to request additional support in order to start processing these because we had so many all at once. I'd feel more comfortable if I just followed up with an actual number of personnel because I know there are more personnel assisting that are outside of APD that are just, they're on loan, if you will, and I can't speak to that specific number. So I'd much prefer I just do a report out as opposed to give you something that could possibly be incorrect. And then I can also delineate, are they actual APD employees or are they support employees? I can give you a better sense on that, and then also identify any temporary employees we may have hired. I know we've also hired temporary employees too. So I'd much prefer give you a holistic breakdown on that as opposed to possibly providing something that's inaccurate.
Sure. That sounds great. Thank you. And I just have one last question. So you brought up the Community Police Review Commission, or the CPRC, and I'm not trying to catch you out here at all. I'm just looking for clarity. You mentioned that it's been around for a few years, but when I look in City Municode, I didn't write down. Oh, yeah, Chapter 215, subsection 4. It looks like it was created in direct response to Prop A passed on May 6, 2023. So I'm curious, did that commission in fact exist before then? And did just, because I know the composition changed, quote unquote, there were 11 members randomly assigned to the commission. So I guess that's my first question, like, do you know for certain that it has existed more than the last couple of years? And then also, to be clear for everyone here, so that commission is like our commission. It's a city commission with bylaws and, following city code just like ours does. And when I go to the city commission website, and so this might be a question for the clerk's office, there's no evidence of meetings. There's no agenda posted. There are no previous videos or audio. So are they in fact meeting, and do you have any awareness of, if they have?
I know the one that has been put in place because we passed the contract. That one, they are in the works of going through the training. There is required and mandated training that they're required to do, and I know they are going through the process of doing that. Now, the previous one that was in existence, it does not have the same name. But I know that they were in existence because I was in internal affairs and had to do briefings to them. So I know there's been iterations of them, just in a different name.
Okay. Yeah, it says it was formed November 18th, 2024, and there is a list of names of about 12 commissioners who serve on it. So I'm curious about that. And just for folks here to be aware, it's a short list of 8 things that the commission is tasked to do. Number 1, review any investigation of death in custody, serious bodily injury, or other serious misconduct after the completion of any investigation and prior to the issuance of discipline and or in response to the request for review by a complainant. 2, recommend to the police chief discipline that should be used in the cases it reviews. 3, request to be briefed by the director and or internal affairs department representative concerning the facts of a particular case under review by the commission. 4, advise the police chief, the director of the Office of Police Oversight, the city manager, and the city council on the effectiveness and appropriateness of the department's policies and procedures concerning complaints of police officer misconduct, police officer training, use of force by police officers, community relations, and other activities of the department. 5, address other department activities of public concern. 6, assess the effectiveness of the Office of Police Oversight and this ordinance and suggest improvements. 7, report at least annually to the public on the results of its activities, releasing to all interested parties and the public at the same time. And 8, conduct community engagement activities, including public postings of all meeting agendas with the subject matter, including incident date and the nature of the incident. So again, this is Municode. They were formed in November 18th, 2024. I don't think this is on APD if they're not doing anything, but I just think that's something for all of us to follow up with our council members about and ask for an update on when that commission will be meeting and, what cases they'll be reviewing.
Can I just add to that, that when we look at completed criminal investigation, that can be years. And so when it was formed last year, they might not be to that point on several of these cases that they would be reviewing so far.
That makes sense, and I think that's part of what they're tasked with doing, but quote unquote address other department activities of public concern. I would say this conversation tonight, I would think would be relevant for that commission, for example. So anyway, something for us to think about. Thanks, y'all.
We're almost done. Officers, I appreciate your patience. We've got a few follow-ups. Brandon, and then okay.
Just a quick comment I noticed on the Police Oversight website. The Office of Police Oversight will host the quarterly Police Oversight Implementation Workgroup meeting on Wednesday, May 14th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We invite community members to attend for an overview of quarterly complaints data and ask questions about our complaint process. The meeting is open to the public and will be hosted at the Carver branch of the Austin Public Library on Angelina Street. Thank you. Angelina Street.
Commissioner Bandit.
I just want to say that bringing up Stonewall as a way to argue for policing is historically inaccurate. Stonewall happened because of over-policing and excessive force on our community, especially trans and gender nonconforming people of color. And when you understand the history of police within our community, you understand how a lot of us are hesitant to have y'all in our spaces, including gay cops, right? Because even if y'all are just walking in and you feel like you're a part of the community, it still puts a lot of us feeling unsafe. So I think that that is something that needs to be reviewed and discussed before y'all are sitting here going into these bars that you treat differently than others. That's all.
Could I speak to that on why that started in the first place? It was started by one of our officers who was attempting to try to help build better relations. I understand your point of view and how you feel, and I respect that 100%. I'm just trying to give you context for why this started in the first place, because there's very few venues in Austin really to kind of engage the queer community, and that was one of the ones that we were able to start that dialogue with. Since that, we reviewed that. We hear what you're saying. Bringing this forward, I was just trying to give you the context for that. I myself have had the opportunity to meet people in various different spots and be able to have dialogue with them. And sometimes just being able to talk to officers changes people's perception because they're able to take a look at them and have a dialogue.
But still, whenever it's happening like only in the gay bars and it's not happening in other bars, it feels like it's targeted and it feels strange. And I get you're trying to sit here and have community dialogue, but that's not the way to do it, especially when they just come in and they just stand there and look around. It's very intimidating. It's not a way to build community.
And you're 100% correct. That was not what his intent or the intent was initially. It was to have some sort of a dialogue. We do go into other bars on 4th Street. We do go in periodically to go to the bathroom or to maybe get water. We take a few minutes and talk to people in different bars on not just on 4th Street, but on 6th Street and other parts of the downtown area, and just the normal course of our business. But it's not just bars. We try to engage the community wherever we can try to engage the community. Moving forward, officers coming in and not engaging, I completely understand how that's insanely intimidating, and we need to be better at that moving forward. I want to work towards that so that we can have that dialogue. You and I have had the ability previously to talk on different things. I would like to continue to do that because I think that's the only way that I'm able, or any of us are able, to understand the community better is through dialogue. And that's all I ask is out of this, is that hopefully we continue that and find the right way to do that so that we can become better in doing our job and helping to keep you safe and helping to make people feel safe.
Yeah, I do agree that there needs to be better routes of discussion than going into the bars and staring at us. Thank you.
Commissioner Coyne.
Thanks, y'all. I'm going to try to go through these quickly, and some of them can be follow-ups, since y'all have all nodded about a town hall being a thing we can coordinate on. First, Rocio already asked for some statistics. I want some specific ones, so I want to make sure I'm asking directly. How many incidences does APD have on the books a year? Any incidences? How many incidences have any use of force, and how many of those do you find an excessive force of use? Excessive force is used. So, and then I'd also like to understand a little bit more about how you set goals as a department with those statistics. Do you have goals for reduction in use of force and excessive force? Because that, to me, is the benchmark for how you would set new policy based on community feedback and say, hey, we need to get these numbers down because we're hearing from community that something's not working, we're going to change policy. And then the accountability piece is, here's how the numbers have changed. So I'd like more numbers, and specifically on force. Second, I think I want to open up this as a potential topic of discussion because I've heard repeatedly that certain queer organizations in Austin aren't comfortable with APD. There is no silver bullet for having a trusted relationship with APD and the queer community at any point in the future for all of our community, even if we can make inroads in creating more trust. So for instance, events like Dyke March and Queer Bomb and some of the less corporate pride events, there's a constant conversation about how we can have events without police presence, and having a conversation about what that could look like in the context of policing, I also think needs to be an important conversation that we're helping to steward as a commission. How do we make sure that we're creating a path forward to having some events where police are not present, but our community is still safe? So I just want to put that kind of on the agenda. I also want to hear a little bit more, and maybe this is, again, a town hall item. From what I understand of the process for APD recruitment, first of all, it seems like you've been recruiting like crazy the last few years. You want more officers on the force. We have heard that in your contract negotiations that you do not have enough officers. That seems to me like a recipe for being kind of desperate with who you accept into your programs. It also seems to me, and I'm not trying to imply that, I'm sure you have what you would deem high-quality officers going through training, etc. What is that bar, though, from the get-go? Because from what I understand, it is incredibly difficult to get a bad cop out of the force once they're in it. How do you filter to make sure you're not letting extremist views into the force from the get-go before they become a cadet or while they're a cadet? How do you filter for white supremacy and homophobia and misogyny and some of these things that are systemically a part of policing? So maybe brief response, maybe longer response, whatever that needs to look like. Based on time.
Okay. Chief Henderson, if you don't mind giving a brief response and then maybe some follow-up on that so we can, this is the start of a conversation, and I'm not saying that this is the start of a conversation. And I want to make sure that we're giving the respect to commissioners here who are asking questions, but also respecting time. So maybe a brief response, and then we can follow up. Sorry.
Yes, so brief response is that they're required to meet with a staff psychologist who does that through vetting of questions through their questionnaire. In addition, they have a polygraph that they are required to go through. Now, understand there's more, but short answer, I'll stop there, but I will send you materials where there's a vetting process that goes through to try and identify.
Okay, thank you. And then just last comment, I think when we initially talked about having a policing conversation as a part of this commission, one of the things that I said was it should be the only agenda item. And I will take responsibility for not raising the red flag when this was added to the agenda, but for a variety of reasons. One reason, some people might not feel safe coming to this meeting because they know there's police here, but there's other items on the agenda. And we want public to be able to come. And also, everyone's exhausted, especially the folks who have been even more dysregulated tonight because they don't feel safe because of who we're with. So I would like to ask us to consider postponing any items that are not critical items because we're human beings and everyone wants to go lay down right now. This is hard.
Ryan, is that an official motion for any postponements that I need to consider right now?
It was not an official motion. I can answer that question. It was an ask for discussion and consideration.
Commissioner Fierro Perez.
We're still asking them questions, right? We're not talking about this. All right, cool. I just have one quick question. Thank you all so much for being here again. I know you mentioned the public information request. I'm very familiar with them. Is that the mechanism you're talking about earlier about how we can request information about the incident with the trans woman that was assaulted?
That is correct. We don't standardly just put out information. Like I said, it's
Right.
it would be too much for us to try and generate all the time for every single incident. And so we have to utilize this process,
Understood.
if you will, and in order to make sure that those items that are being requested are being provided.
Gotcha. Could you provide that email that I can reach out to?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Commissioner Brown, and you're the last one.
Okay, thank you.
KB, you're the last one.
Mr. Chair, if we have further questions of these folks, can we send them to you and you send them on so they can, okay, that'd be great. Then I have only one question, because we live everywhere in this city and we do not have a representative from District 6 on this commission currently. What is the, has the response times, well, and just let you know, I work for Williamson County Commissioner Terry Cook, which, if you look at our precinct, you have Round Rock on one side and Austin on the other. Okay? So, has the response times to the Austin, the Wilco part of Austin gotten any better? And I imagine y'all are still working on that.
That I do not have information on. I was not prepared to speak to.
Okay,
response
I
times
get
in
that. It's
Williamson
sort of
County,
out of
but-
left field, but you know, District 6 is partially in Wilco, and so I'm trying to step up for our constituents there.
Commissioner Brown, your question's out.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm done.
And we do have the data sets for response times in the District 6, so happy to send those to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
No, Commissioner Brookins.
There's a lot of work to be done. I want to say out in the room, plenty of we haven't even gotten to the conversation about unhoused and the unhoused folks in our community, and how so many unhoused folks in Austin are queer and trans. So this is not necessarily something that y'all have to reply to, but I have a community member that's told me that they have plenty of unhoused Black trans friends who've been arrested over and over for disturbing the peace because they are singing too loud to themselves or cursing out loud or just having any type of episode. And also folks who are arrested for trespassing when there is nowhere to sleep, right? And there's a large question of which queer and trans people do y'all protect and what kind of trauma-informed care is there? Because I don't think that policing is an appropriate response to someone experiencing homelessness. And yeah, there's just a lot to say about intentionality and dignity and respect and these words that have been said, but these words that have not been felt by a lot of people in the community, me included, some people on this commission included, and some people even in the audience. So I just want to say it's a lot of work to be done. I know this is one conversation out of many, and I hope that we can talk more internally also, because I don't know if we all have the same goal with how we need to interact with police officers. So anyway, just saying that and putting that in the air so that it can be on the audio and so that we can continue to really think our taxpayer dollars are going to this police department they need to be if they are to be around actually being here for all of us. But yeah.
Thank you all very much. I know this is a long evening. Appreciate you all coming, filling in for Chief Davis. I'm sure she is more than appreciative. Talk means a lot. I certainly have heard one item that y'all could easily take a step on to really show y'all's sincere intent to, work with us. And I think that was correcting the statement on the trans video issue. Y'all have a good night.
No, thank you for having us.
Thank
We appreciate you. Thank you.